That very much was the prediction of a lot of thinkers, honestly, conservative and liberal thinkers, leading up to the Affordable Care Act and really when the implementation of the Affordable Care Act went in full swing with the exchanges. It hasn't happened. There's no other, it's not like it hasn't happened to the extent that they predicted, it just hasn't happened. You've seen employer-sponsored coverage remain pretty steady even since January 1st of 2014 with the launch of the individual market. I think that's in many ways because you have such an advantage in offering employer-sponsored benefits, including major medical coverage, that it wasn't as though employers were offering that prior to the ACA out of, some obligation that they felt like they had to because there was no alternative. Right. It was because most employers are heavily invested in the health of their employees, and because it makes a lot of sense as a tax advantage form of compensation. And so it really is in the best interest of both the employer and the employee to keep that system intact. One of the biggest trends is that we're seeing more consumer-driven health products, namely health savings accounts. The HSA growth in popularity was escalated by the Affordable Care Act, but it was by no means caused by the Affordable Care Act. You had seen HSAs growing in popularity in the almost 10 years prior to really the full implementation of the ACA that they were around. You do see deductibles increasing, and so you have a lot more interest in HSAs, but also you have plans that are, including many employer-sponsored plans that are looking at HSAs and consumer-driven health products as a means of keeping costs down. It's very intentional. It's not as though it was an accident that deductibles are going up and that they're offering HSAs. You have a lot of demand for wanting to have more consumer control and make the types of decisions that you make when you're spending your own money versus spending someone else's. So we're seeing more consumer-driven health products. You are seeing an increase in self-funded plans. That is something that the ACA is probably going to have some role in increasing the level of self-funding. Part of that is because we do still have the HIP, the health insurers tax, that ends up making self-funding from a tax perspective somewhat more advantageous. You have more carriers that are writing stop-loss coverage for smaller and mid-sized companies, and so that makes self-funding more advantageous. One of the biggest trends that we're seeing is this idea of value-based insurance design that a lot of employer plans are very big on, and really leading the way in many instances in innovation when it comes to how they're pricing their plans and what they're putting into them in terms of wellness programs and incentives to make sure that their employees and their employees' spouses or dependents are really utilizing their healthcare in the most efficient way, and that they're looking after themselves. So I think one of the most exciting trends, the HSA trend is in many ways a very positive trend, but it's really more of a tax-based trend. The value-based insurance design really reflects this idea that employers are invested in the health of their employees, and it gets at this idea of actually lowering the cost of care, which has kind of escaped the debate in the ACA and in the American Health Care Act, and really has nothing to do with HSA. I mean, HSAs are in no way going to actually lower what it costs to pay for a particular provision of medical care. It may make some difference in what you choose to pay for, in the kind of consumer thinking that goes on, but when it comes to not necessarily just wellness programs, because I think people have this idea of wellness programs as it's all just, slap a Fitbit on somebody and go out and do a step competition. That probably isn't really going to be a game changer. Giving someone a gym membership or signing them up for a smoking cessation class, in and of itself, probably going to be a game changer. But a lot of value-based insurance design plans are incorporating this kind of holistic approach of investing in the overall health care. that's going to be, I think, really one of the next frontiers in wellness programs, health insurance, and life insurance. You do have kind of this tension between wanting to have as much data as you can, wanting to have as much information for kind of benevolent purposes. You want as much data as you can so that you can make smarter choices as a purchaser of healthcare. But absolutely, that raises privacy concerns. And so I think there's going to be a legal debate that unfolds in Washington. There's a bill that's been introduced that has raised a lot of red flags. It may not be necessarily as clear-cut as some of the reporting has made it out to be, but absolutely, I think it's incumbent upon employers, upon the plan administrators to make sure that privacy is prioritized, because there really isn't a situation where, when you look at why they're offering benefits, again, they're offering benefits because they're investing in their employees as a whole person, and so you don't want to disrupt that rationale by invading someone's privacy. That is a concern for employers outside of benefits. The fact that employees have devices in their pockets, and they have locations, and there's all sorts of privacy concerns that are going to come up over the course of the next decade. And I think this is just one of them. And it's I think important to have a dialogue between employees, employers, and the plan administrators to make sure that regardless of what the law may technically allow, in a balance between the ACA and GINA and the AEA, those are all going to be significant legal concerns. That's going to come up if some of the sides to litigate a privacy issue. But I think that we can really lead the way as plans in making sure that we're striking the right balance between getting data that's going to end up helping improve health outcomes and going to lower costs, but making sure that no one's privacy is being invaded unnecessarily. It's a really bad idea. It's not just a bad idea for the business community. It's a bad idea because it's going to cause a significant number of Americans to lose health coverage. I mean, again, this is the bedrock, not just of some employee benefit system. This is the bedrock of our healthcare system. This is how everything out there, all the great medical success stories that happen, all the great primary care physicians and specialists that are doing work every day with their patients. They get paid ultimately, if it's not through Medicare or Medicaid, through this system, through the fact that we have employer-sponsored benefits. And so when you disrupt that, when you start taxing that, that's going, anytime you increase taxes on something, that's going to push people out of the market. And you'll see that with employer-sponsored benefits. You will see employers either have to increase premiums to a point that, again, we're already on a trend line that is not healthy. That's going to cause that trend line to escalate. Or you're just going to see many businesses, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, drop coverage. That's going to increase government costs, and then now we're back to a worse place where we started, where the government ends up spending more and we get less out of it, which oftentimes is a government solution to the problem: spend more and get less. But taxing the cornerstone of our healthcare system simply to bring in more revenue to cut Medicaid isn't something that we're going to get behind. Well, the future is an employer-sponsored coverage. I mean, that's kind of the good news. Is that there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of chaos and changing stories, and you've got different proposals that seem to kind of rise with the tides every day of which senator is going to back a particular change having to do with the individual market or with Medicaid. Those are really important debates that we're having, and that AHIP, for example, along with many other industry leaders, is involved in Washington. But the cornerstone of our healthcare system really is not a part of that. And that's part of the reason that it was very concerning when there were reports that some senators may have been considering bringing that into the debate, because the future really is in the innovation that's coming from employers large and small that are looking at, again, not just wellness programs, but looking at ways that they can really invest in the overall health of their employees. And if we're actually going to, again, not just kind of bend the cost curve, but really lower the cost of care, I think it's really going to come through employers working with their plans, working with the providers, and coming to some consensus that will also involve getting the drug companies on board and lowering those costs, that we can say, listen, we have really all of the tools at our disposal. We have more medical brilliance today in 2017 than we've had at any point in human history. We know how to keep people healthy. People are living longer. That is a great thing. It comes with great responsibility that is usually in the form of costs. And so I think the exciting thing is that this is a great time to be in the world of healthcare. I'm certainly not a physician, but I know for many physicians that I work with and that I know, this is an exciting time to be practicing medicine. It's a great time to be, working with an expanded pool of patients. You've got technological innovation. You've got an ability to be connected with the individual, whether it's the employer being connected with their employee or a physician being more connected with the patient. And employer-sponsored plans are really making sure that a lot of that can be supported. So kind of while there's a lot of chaos and debate going on in Washington, on the other side, you've got employers who are working with providers, who are working with patient employees and sitting around and saying, how can we actually make things better? There's actually a lot of good going on there. That's very much working. Health insurance does work when you let it.